What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Jones. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and the first person I want to see when I got to Toronto was Dr. Vibe. Been on his show before. I will be on his show again if he lets me. He's a great guy. I tell everyone to tune in, to download, to subscribe. You're going to learn some things. It's good for your mind, it's good for your heart, it's good for your body, it's good for your spirit. On and off the mic, he's a great guy. You got to check him out. My name's Chris Jones, all from Chicago. Peace and love.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. Also know that this is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And if you don't know that for sure, I've done over 1,500 conversations in almost 10 years. So this is the place to be. And I'm also president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching Consulting, and I'm a certified empowerment coach. But tonight, we've got another good friend back on the show. When it comes to media, this is the lady we go to because she has knowledge like not many people I know when it comes to media. She teaches it, she practices it, she lives it. She's so active. She has a great show on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time called MediaScope, where she talks about media and pop culture. And that's what we're going to be chatting about tonight. This year in media and pop culture, there's so many things, pop culture-wise, media-wise, but we're blessed and highly favored to have Tachiada with us. What is Tachi?
Hey, Dr. Vibe. You know what? It really feels good to be back in your space. I've been missing it. So thank you for having me on again.
Well, we miss you back. I know some people may not have heard of you before. So can you give a little background about yourself?
Sure. Well, once again, my name is Tachiada is a mashup, actually, of my nickname and my middle name because Tachi was already taken, which is what people call me. So my name is Dr. Chetachi Egwu. I am a media professor, a filmmaker, a journalist, a media creator, and I just love all things media. And so, as Dr. Vibe said, I am the host of MediaScope and co-host of 2 other shows and a podcast. So, I'm not hearing you, Dr. Vibe.
As you notice, Tachi does not get a lot of sleep, but loves what she does. And we're really happy to have you on the program tonight, on the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's get right at it. When we look at 2016 with media and pop culture, what are some of your observations? Because we're coming to the end of 2016 when it comes to media and pop culture this year.
And I can kind of say, thank God we're coming to the end of 2016 because this has been a very eventful year in good and bad ways. So I'm ready for those bad ways to end. So namely, one thing that was really prominent was the loss of so many people in media and entertainment. Now, granted, some of them, were older, up in age, so it makes sense. But it just seemed like it was a barrage, one right after the other. I mean, and till today, it's relentless. Just the other day, we lost Zsa Zsa Gabor, and so relentless. This 2016 is. So I'll be glad to see it go and happy to see what 2017 offers. But so let's talk about some things. And Dr. Vibe, please interject wherever, please, because otherwise I will just keep rolling.
Absolutely.
So
no problem. Go ahead. Start it off.
Okay. So absolutely, without a doubt, I think a really, really big thing was live streaming and live video. That I'm sure nobody would disagree with. The fact that Facebook took, trying to be the godfather of all media. Oh, but excuse me, they said that they're not a media company, that they're a tech company, according to COO Sheryl Sandberg, which is absolute rubbish. But in any case, I digress. But the fact that Facebook really put all of their eggs into video this year is really telling. A large media company like that doing such a thing. And also the fact that, for example, Mashable, they had at one point gotten rid of their entire editorial team to refocus their efforts on video, and not just live video, but video in general. So this tells you how critically important video and live video was to the media game this year. I mean, even the fact that all of us that we're on this platform now, you, Dr. Vibe, myself, a lot of other creators, really speaks to the salience of video and, more importantly, live video this year. So are you hearing me, Dr. Vibe?
I am hearing you. I just want to interject because we talked about this before we went live, was an article I read today from a fairly prominent gentleman on online communication, gentleman named Mark Schaefer. And he said that Facebook Live is not ready for prime time. And he basically said a lot of businesses are still not sold by Facebook Live or live streaming as of yet. What are your thoughts?
Say that again. He said that Facebook Live, say again.
He said that Facebook Live is not ready for prime time.
Okay.
That companies won't move their content production to live video.
Dr. Vibe, I'm sorry. I don't know. It was rebuffering. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, but it
can you hear me, Tachi?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can.
Okay.
I'm just saying that what the gentleman was saying is that live stream for companies are not sold as of yet because still there's so many technical challenges. Another big issue is it's very time consuming. So can you differentiate how much impact live video can do for individuals versus big brands?
In a lot of cases, there's really no difference between the value that live streaming can have for big brands as well as for individuals. And so going back to the thing about Mark Schaefer saying that Facebook Live isn't ready for prime time, he's absolutely right. It's not. I think that, and part of the thing is because of where their focus or where their heads are. Since they've already made the commitment to being a tech company as opposed to a media company, that really shows me that they don't understand media. And bigger than that they don't understand, video and the power of it, and the fact that it's not just about X, Y, and Z. That there are more components to it than what they're thinking. That doesn't mean that they're completely off the mark, but they're not ready for prime time. I don't think. So it makes sense that there is a slow unfolding of a lot of the aspects of Facebook Live, and because I would hope that they know that they're not ready for it yet. But going back now to the current question, is that there are so many benefits. The point of living out live is to show others what you're doing, whether you're a brand and a company or you're just branding yourself. There are so many benefits to putting yourself out there on video or live, because seeing is believing. That's an old saying, but it actually is. When you can tell people what you're doing, you can write about it, or you can show people. Most people are visual, and they're going to appreciate the depiction or the video showing of whatever it is. So live video has tremendous implications, not just for enterprise, because obviously that's a way that you can connect with your viewers, you can connect with your customers, but it's also a way to make connections for personal branding as well.
Well, you mentioned Facebook Live. Obviously, they're probably their major competitors, Periscope. At the end of 2016, in the Facebook Live versus Periscope, who do you think is ahead of the race? In the race, sorry.
Okay, in the race in terms of, they're both in the race. It's just a question of for how much longer Periscope will remain salient and a player in this game. This is just my opinion. So case in point, what happened the other day is that Well, a bunch of things happened at once. So Instagram gave you the ability to do live video. Instagram live videos disappear as soon as you finish doing them. Instagram is owned by Facebook. Facebook has Facebook Live, which is a completely different product. It's still live streaming, but it's live streaming with the intent of archiving and with the intent of others being able to view this content later. So those are two totally different types of people, two totally different types of audiences. Now, going over to the Periscope Twitter thing, Periscope has done away with, well, no, they haven't done away with Periscope. That's a misnomer. They now have Twitter Live. So you can initiate live video inside Twitter, and it will show up in your Periscope feed. I'm guessing, provided that that you've connected the two, it will show up in Periscope. Your viewers from Periscope can view it, but it's the same product. So what's happening is that Twitter/Periscope is not differentiating products enough to justify having two products. If you can go from one or the other and it's the same thing, why do you have two? Whereas what Facebook Live has done is made a distinct differentiation between its Instagram and its Facebook live streaming product. I think that's key. You have to, because now Twitter is in the predicament of having to justify why Periscope exists, because you could do the same thing now from Twitter. This is one reason why I think right now, because it's still anybody's game, right now, why Facebook is pulling ahead. They're not ready for prime time, but they're trying to pull ahead because of all this. And now, you have a little bit better of a discovery tool for Facebook. You've always had, for a couple of months now, you've had the ability to go to facebook.com/live map and see who was broadcasting from wherever in the world for a little while. But, still, you couldn't see that. But now that play button is in your at the top of your timeline, you can now see who's live when, and it gives you some suggestions. So search and discovery is becoming a little bit better for Facebook Live video. So as that inches ahead, I'm not surprised to see Facebook pulling ahead of Periscope.
Okay. So does it make sense to have Facebook Live and Instagram offer live streaming?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't get the difference. Okay.
Well, the difference is that Instagram, you're doing first of all, you may have mutually exclusive audiences on Instagram and Facebook, or you may not, because since they're connected, a lot of people will connect via both. So it's not necessarily they're mutually exclusive. It's just that the audience and the user for both of them are different. So here's the thing. Instagram still skews very young. Okay, a lot of people use Instagram, but there are awful lot of millennials on Instagram. Those are the type of people that are interested in live streaming for a minute, and if it disappears, it's cool. It disappears, it's cool. Okay, AKA Snapchat. All right, which is why it was so attractive to millennials. Right. That's a different audience than someone who is a business or a brand doing a Facebook Live interview with somebody pertinent to the brand that can stay up in their timeline into infinity. That's completely different. So they are two different products.
Okay. And I guess things we saw in live streaming, just there's different live streaming platforms out there. Plus, we lost a platform, Catch, this year. So, what are your thoughts about just the number of live streaming platforms out there right now?
I'm never one to say there are too many, but there are quite a few live streaming platforms. At the end of the day, it's like anything. When one company does something, the granddaddy of everyone. Now, live streaming has really been around as an entity for all intents and purposes for about 11 or 12 years now. Okay, we're talking YouTube has had this capacity. Ustream, live stream. There have been other platforms that have the capacity to do live streaming. They just did not catch on until for large numbers of people until Meerkat. Okay, so Meerkat, for all intents and purposes, was the beginning of the commercial app live stream revolution. It's not here anymore, right? So the point is that it's anybody's game. Anybody is allowed to enter, to develop a live streaming app and enter the game. You can count dozens and dozens of these on your fingers now. However, if you don't innovate, you don't do enough to bring people to your platform, you don't, and unfortunately, even though I don't necessarily feel this is the case, a lot of platforms really like to have influential people on there, or these so-called influencers on there, because they think it's going to bring other people. In some ways, yes, it does. In other ways, not so much. So because if that were the case, then some of these platforms would not necessarily shut down. But I think in terms of being too many, there are a lot. And I think that consumers, especially people who are not used to doing video and live video at that, are clueless on their own as to what to pick or what to use. So they're going to go with the one that most people are using, as opposed to the one that might be the best for them or where their audience may live.
Okay. I want to switch it up in regards to what do you see at the end of 2016 when it comes to diversity in media?
To which media? I'm sorry.
I'm just seeing, what are your thoughts at the end of 2016 as it comes to the diversity in media?
Oh, I'm so glad that you had this. You asked this, because I actually had like a number of points, and for me, diversity is number 4 on the list. But not that they're in any such order. This was the year of diversity, as if people just discovered that other people live in the world with them. Diversity has always been here. We've always been interested in diversity. Unfortunately, it's contingent upon us to always initiate the conversation on diversity, which is, sheer stupidity. Simply because we do want to see depictions of ourselves in all, and I'm not just talking about race or ethnicity, I'm talking about in all aspects of diversity. So we want to see aspects of ourselves on screen, in media, and we will buy. Even if it's not, and it's been shown over and over, we're huge consumers. People in general are huge consumers of media. So the diversity thing and the lack of, I didn't get. But we start, once the hashtag Oscar So White, which was, really came out last award season. We're now into the next award season. And so because of that hashtag Oscar So White, and the increased scrutiny on not only Hollywood, but media in general, in terms of the lack of diversity and the lack of different voices, you started to see, oh, well, yeah, the Academy was a big one. Okay, well, let's do this. As if this was not a problem before and they didn't need to focus on it before. But there was attention paid to it, and you have to save face. You have to look good. You have to at least fake the funk like you're trying to do something about the issue. So, there goes that. Then I think number 2, in terms of these quote unquote layperson's apps, you see an awful lot of diversity, from people to disabilities, to women, to people of color, to people interested in different things like ministry, et cetera, et cetera. You see an awful lot of diversity on these platforms. And so that offered a way for the average person who has a niche to get in on the ground floor and not wait for third party X or production company X to tell me, okay, go ahead and give us your content, because you didn't have to ask for permission. So I think that was another great thing in terms of diversity and pushing diversity there. There's still a long way to go.
You are a filmmaker yourself. You see that there was more diversity happening behind the camera?
Yeah, it depends on what you mean. I think there's always been diversity behind the camera because there have always been independent productions. There have always been people, you know, since the days of web series where where there were platforms able to support video. There's always been diversity in terms of those types of creators, the independent creators. There's always been diversity. So it's been there. The problem with diversity comes with the big outlets, like, for example, Hollywood, recognizing this diversity, because that's not even the biggest market in the world. Number one is India. Number two is Nigeria. Number three is Hollywood. It's just that Hollywood has more influence around the world than the other two markets. But in terms of distribution and production, those two beat Hollywood hands down. So there's always been diversity behind the camera, above the line, as we like to say. There's always been diversity there. I think that there's been a lack of it in Hollywood, but this year, particularly, when you start to see the emphasis on people like Ava DuVernay and her directing and 13th, which is on Netflix, and Queen Sugar, which is on OWN. When you look at people like Donald Glover, who used to write for 30 Rock, but is also known as the Childish Gambino because he is also a rapper. He's an actor. Atlanta is critically acclaimed, and he's actually been nominated for a Golden Globe for Atlanta. Great series. So you start to see these things, and you start to see, okay, Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation, regardless of what it was shrouded, what controversy was shrouding it. The fact is there are people of color that are out there, and diverse people that are, like women, for example, that are out there above the line that are participating. But the numbers are still fewer in comparison to the amount of, for example, white men that are still considered the standard in Hollywood.
Well said. And you said you came to the conversation with 4 points. So I want you to introduce the next point that you wanted to cover this evening.
Oh, well, I actually have more than 4 points. But
okay, go for it. Hey, go for as many as you want. I'm here, and I'm certainly going to engage with you during the conversation.
Okay, absolutely. So then, if I could, can I go back to live streaming and live video for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. I think that was the major social media story of the year, the live streaming, and it's still in its birth stage. It's still birthing, so to speak.
Oh yeah, it's still really in its infancy. There's so much more that can be done. I think what everybody is trying to figure out now is the monetization end of it, because, you know, that's everybody's big thing. And so Facebook, of course, was experimenting with some live streams of, some influencers in terms of placing ads. So the big thing, or the next big thing in 2017 in particular, I know we're talking about 2016, but looking ahead to 2017 is, are they going to finally figure out the monetization end of this? So that's going to be the big thing. Facebook has been really doing this whole campaign. I don't know if you've seen in Canada, if they're doing the commercials that talk about the average person going live, and it's been on like billboards and buses and that type of thing as well. And I've seen television commercials, whereas before that's not necessarily something you saw. So there's a huge emphasis on the average person going live, because the more people you have going live, the more salient it is for an advertiser to get on board and advertise it during live stream. Because if it's just a niche few, it doesn't make any sense. So, you know, you could try and be like, oh, we only want XYZ. Yeah, well, XYZ is not the majority of the population who is going to, and guess what? They're not even the majority of the population doing it well. Let's be honest. I've seen a lot of live streams. That's another thing. There have been many live streams, and no shade to celebrities. I think they're fantastic. But simply because you're an expert in one area does not make you an expert in another. And there are an awful lot of people, for example, like you, Dr. Vibe, who take the time to plan and to put shows together and come up with these epic conversations to share information with the world. And then you have somebody who's famous because they're famous on these live streaming platforms, just talking to people. And now there's room in the space for that as well. But it's just interesting that there are people who do it 10 times better, or 30 times better in some cases, than the people who get the shine, if that makes any sense. So that was my public service announcement for today. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think one of the comments I hear for people who are criticizing or not pleased with live streaming is so many live streaming presentations have nothing to say. There's no value in what's being presented. And that's understood. And you look at Facebook Live, yes, it's there to, share with your friends, etc. But there's a lot of people on these live platforms that you wonder, what are they doing? What's their message?
You're right. And for some people, I always say there's room in the space for everyone, and the market will determine who lives and who goes away. So there is room in the space for the people that are like, come roast me, I'm bored, come talk to me, I'm just showing this and showing that, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I think there are other platforms for that. So if it is truly that you just want to share those types of things with friends or people that are friendly with you, there are platforms that are for that, as opposed to these. And again, I don't want to come off as, well, only people who use XYZ lighting and do this should be on. No, I think you should just try. But I think you should also respect your audience enough to do things properly, to plan your scope or stream, whatever it may be, and just to give value and good information. You're right about giving value. There has to be something there of value, and value is relative. That's why this whole thing is difficult to determine and talk about, because value is relative.
I just want to stay on the live streaming bit for a moment. Can you remember the first live? Can you remember the first live stream that you did?
Yeah, I remember exactly, because I had spent 2 months watching other people. One thing that I always tell people is you learn by watching, and you learn what you like and what you don't like. So I wasn't going to just jump on. I'm very comfortable in front of any camera, in front of any audience, but I'm the type of person that I also like to plan. If I'm going to get on, I'm not just going to get on with rubbish. There needs to be something there. That's me. I'm not one that just will, sit there and talk to people. I have to be doing something and giving you some value, so a reason for you to watch. And so it was the day, excuse me, my allergies are bothering me. It was almost 2 years ago. Well, yeah, no, last year, the first night of the Urban League Conference. And the Urban League Conference, the National Urban League, did their conference here in Fort Lauderdale. They lobbied and lobbied, and they finally got it. And I was both covering it and volunteering for it. And so I said that day, I had gone and I had volunteered that morning and was going back that night. And before, I had time in between. And I said, you know what? Today's the day that I'm going to start doing it. And I know media. I teach media. I'm going to do media, and I'm going to call it MediaScope. Here we go. And so I set up both Meerkat and not Facebook Live, but Periscope, and that was my first one. So it was July 29th, 2015.
Nice. Wow. And how has the landscape of media culture changed for you, if any, over the last few years?
Ooh, that's a really, really important question. I think that, number one, because it's become such a phenomenon, more people are not necessarily used to it, but more people know about it. So I'm finding now that more people understand when you say Periscope or Facebook Live, more people understand that these things exist and they're there for use than last year. You know, even last year, December, more people understand that now. So I think that's changed. Number two, I think that it's changed because it's being taken more seriously by other media outlets. So as opposed to this being just a side dish for some, they are now also focusing efforts on making live video a main part of what they do and not just an aside. So I've noticed that. However, in that, I've always also noticed that they've become more alienated from their audience. And by that, I mean, they just take the same stuff that they do on linear television, repurpose it, and put it on a live streaming platform. Or they simulcast it and put the feed through. Now that's fine. I think it works well. Like, for example, the Golden Globe nominations I watched on Facebook Live and on TV at the same time because I wanted to see the time difference. So that was great to be able to see that. It brings things to you that if you're at work or something and you're really dying to know about the Golden Globe nominations, that's great. But the problem is there was no interaction. People had all sorts of wonderful things to say and nobody could say anything back. Nobody came back after the fact to say, all right, well, what do you guys think about these nominations? Such and such. We already knew Moonlight was, we knew La La Land was going to get it. What do you guys think? Nobody came back on. There was no follow-up. And I see this so many times with the big media companies that live stream. The better thing to do is like, okay, for example, Mike, which is like that kind of independent publication. Mike was there during the Dakota Pipeline protests, which are still going on, okay, Standing Rock. And you'll see they're there on the ground and they're answering questions and they're showing us things. That is real engagement. So that is the example of a larger media company, and they're not huge, but a media company that is doing live streaming right.
Excellent. Well, anything else you want to add on about live streaming? What do you see for 2017 when it comes to live streaming? Sorry.
Oh, good question. I really see this injection of trying to monetize, and I really see Facebook experimenting further with ads during live video. It's a pain. All of this is a pain, but I think people have to realize that media has to be paid for somehow. All of this space, this bandwidth costs money. And though we've been getting things for free, that's part of the problem when you spoil people. They're used to getting things for free, and then they could become indignant when ads have to come into but it's inevitable. So I think that this is going to be the year where they figure out a creative way to interject ad money into the whole thing, 2017. I also see one of the big things that was great this year, towards the end of this year, is that the APIs were open for Facebook and then, of course, Periscope, using Periscope Producer, so that now you can use open broadcasting software like OBS. You can use Wirecast or Switcher or any of these, even Twitch, any of these broadcasting software platforms, and now you can make it look like a professional production. So you could do things like lower thirds. You can bring in another person. For example, Facebook, that's a big thing. Same thing with Periscope, because you can only do one person. The attraction, I think, for people with a platform like the former Blab, the platform formerly known as Blab, was that you could have more than one person at a time and conduct interviews and separate the audio and do things. I think that was the attraction. The problem is the business model was flawed. So in terms of that in 2017, I also see more. We're going to see more producers using these platforms to really make their productions top notch, and they're going to need to if they're expecting to monetize.
Wow, Wow, this could be a whole show in itself, just the whole live streaming bit. But what we'll do is we'll take a turn. What other things did you have written down? Because we may have to do part 2 of this. I'm feeling that already.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would love to do that. So the other big thing, that I go to the National Association of Broadcasters. And actually, this year I went twice, because I went in April to Vegas and I went to New York in November. And so one big thing, that's the place to watch the trends in terms of technology and media technology. Drones are still a big thing. Drones are still huge. One thing that was a couple of things, I hate the term game changer because so many people use it, but a couple of things that really were things to look at this year was the fact that, number one, Periscope allowed they had integration with a couple of DJI's drones. DJI is a company that makes some really great drones. And so they had integration with that. So you can type in #drone in the search and see drone scopes. Okay. DJI came out with a foldable drone. Okay. Which was, I guess, slightly more affordable as drones go as well, enabling other people to use it. So if you don't have $1,000 plus for a drone, look, there were some drones at NAB that were like 30,000 plus. Okay, so most people that are doing it for production are going to rent these drones as opposed to buying them. But it's nice to have them if that's your thing. So drones are still big, but what has not been figured out yet, besides people that are doing it with purpose, there are a lot of people that are doing it because it's just a cool tool. So we need to see an evolution in drones and drone technology in terms of what they can do and what they're used for. And I'm hoping that's something that's going to be seen in 2017. So the focus in 2016 was on the technology. I'm hoping 2017 will be the use. So that's another thing. Drones. Shall I go on, or do you have a question?
Absolutely. Go.
Okay. So another thing that I had on my list was Twitter. Okay. And social media in general, but Twitter, because Twitter is an interesting animal. So not only did they, of course, acquire Periscope, well, they actually acquired Periscope in 2015. So, but Periscope really started to grow wings, I would say, this year. Wings, and then they would cut off, and then they would grow back, that type of thing. So Twitter was forced to confront its troll problem. And that became a metaphor for confronting trolls on all sorts of social media. So the big thing being when Leslie Jones was so trolled that she actually left Twitter. She quit America. She said, peace. That was a big thing because it forced Twitter for a long time had been just going along on its own, doing what it wanted, knows there's trolls there, takes its time in responding to it. And now here's a high profile celebrity that was being trolled. They didn't act fast enough. And then bam, she left. And then they were forced to do. That's another thing. We tend to be very reactive instead of proactive. So this forced Twitter to look at its troll problem. And not only was it that, it was less about Leslie Jones and then more about when the sale of Twitter was announced, or they were trying to be for sale, Microsoft being amongst the possible salees, and Disney. Disney backed out, and one of the big problems was because there were too many trolls. Now, if you are a media company that really has children in mind and at the center of what you're doing, there's no way in hell or heaven or purgatory or anything that you're going to acquire something where trolls are a huge problem, not when kids are involved. So this, I think, was really sobering for Twitter. And it was sobering for other platforms as well. It made people think about the fact that, all right, yeah, we may not have control over things, but we could do better in terms of monitoring that. Put tools out there for creators, and we're going to monitor as well. Because it's a big company. It's impossible for them to monitor all that they have 310 million users. 310. I don't know if that's average monthly, but I know that the number is 310. So with 310, you cannot monitor everybody. But it was a wake-up call for them, and I think for other people. So that's another thing that I had on my list. Next thing, or did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to know about this whole monetization issue.
Okay.
One of the things I am noticing is a lot of platforms that are offering free services and live streaming are revamping their business model. And will it come to a point where live streaming is mostly you have to pay to get on it? And what effect will that have for many people who have to pay to do broadcasting?
So you know what? You're going to have to pay in one way or the other. So it's either going to be through ads or through a subscription model, like something like what a Huzzah does now, or some of these other platforms. It's going to be one or the other, simply because it costs, and nobody is going to continue to pay for you to use things. And I think that's one thing that we have to understand. The effect that it would have is that, well, it could have two effects. Number one, people will just fall in line and say, okay, if this is what I want to do, then I have to do it. The other effect could be that people just, stop using platforms like these and go towards a model of their own platform. I'm always in favor of having your own, because then you're never at the mercy of because we're here at will. We are here at their pleasure. They could say tomorrow, we're done, and we have nothing to say about it. Because, especially if you don't pay for it, you have nothing to say about it. But I don't see large numbers of people really seeking out doing their own platform, unless you're something like you're a creator like we are, where it's like, okay, it makes sense. But if you're a fly-by-night user, or you just use it to just kind of show the cool things that are going on in your life, unless you're thinking about this as a brand tool, the average person is not going to do it. So I don't think that they're in danger of everybody saying to hell with you and leaving. I don't think they're in danger of that. But it will, if they go towards a subscription model, and granted, the subscription model may not be very much any of these platforms. I don't think it'll be very much. There is now a point of entry for some people. So it may be very cheap, but it may be a barrier for some people, particularly younger users. So I think that creates another barrier to access, similar to what we have in the traditional media system as well. So it's difficult to say what will happen, but these are all things that need to be thought about when we talk about the next steps for live streaming.
And it's interesting when we talk about live streaming, you mentioned it earlier, the death of catch was a significant blow. And also, I haven't said this word in a few months, the death of blab.
The death of blab, the death of catch, yes. The death of meerkat. Significant, really significant, because these were, go ahead.
No, I agree with you, and all of them are significant in their own way, but I don't want to interrupt. You had something to say, so go ahead.
No. I was just piggybacking off of the fact that they were all really significant, but again, it's a cautionary tale that, number one, on the company's end, you have got to have a strategy for how is this is cool, but how is this cool technology going to pay for itself and then make money? Because at the end of the day, server space costs, servers cost, paying people cost, and one person cannot do all of this by themselves. So you need a dedicated team, and all of that costs. So your number one thing should be, is it more important for me to have an exposed brick cool office with cool toys and a break room and everybody loves me in Silicon Valley, or a substantial product that works for the end user and works for the creators? Look, creators could be the most, and you see this And I've already seen this in some lives, you know, not just live stream, but in general, when it comes to keeping contact with the creator. Some people are never bloody satisfied. They're always going to have a problem. There's always something wrong with the platform. They're always complaining, to which sometimes I'm like, well, then, you know, you don't have to be here. You can leave. But you can never please everybody. But at the same time, we are the ones that are creating shine for them for free, mind you. There are so many creators out there that are putting fantastic content out there for free, for asking for nothing more than a little bit of your server space to store my stuff.
I want to follow up in regards to amalgamation when it comes to media, and it just seems that just like in traditional media, the same player, well, not the same players, but there's a small group of players that are controlling all. Do you see that also?
You mean from the end of the platform or the end of the user?
The platforms, the people that are controlling the platforms. It seems to be, again, a very small group that are doing very well at it. And I know how much you prize diversity. Are you seeing enough diversity when it comes to companies that are providing live stream content or platform?
No, so if I can understand, they're really only right now, there are several companies, but you've got a handful that are really, that really control everything. Is this what you're getting at, Dr. Vibe?
Yeah, exactly. Just, it seems very similar to traditional media.
Oh, it is, because it is traditional media. It's non-traditional in the technology and the use, but it's traditional media. And it's really difficult to get away from the setup of traditional media, because you have a lot of people, even though there are many of the people that are founders of these companies who think differently, it's difficult to get the public to think differently as well, and more importantly, to get advertisers to think differently. And so they still go with what they know, with the same NBC red, NBC blue 1938 mentality, that they still go with the same thing. It's still the same. So this is why, and this is not just in media, this is with everything. There are very few people that control everything, whether it's food, whether it's automakers. There's not a lot of diversity in general in terms of things. So the way that a free market society operates is those who have the product that the people want, or that the product that people deem the best or the most popular, is usually the one that gets to the top. But don't sit on your laurels, not in media, because tomorrow it might not be you.
Very, very, very true on that comment. Very true. You know what? I'm just going to keep on going and have you share about the media end, because I want to do a part 2 before the end of the year on the pop culture piece. Is that fair with you?
Sure, absolutely. Sure, absolutely. So,
So what other areas of media? What other areas of media did you find of significance, or media actions of significance in 2016?
So, okay, we could go to the whole media tech thing, 360 AR and VR. Okay, this was a huge year for that. Went to NAB, they had a whole VR pavilion. And so you saw at the Google event, the Google headset, what is it called? I can't remember now. But a lot of the majors came out with a VR headset, because VR was expected to be something big. Now, again, we're still in the stage of technology. We're not in the mass adoption stage of it yet, but we're still in the age of technology. What I'm expecting out of 2017, and we started to see a little bit of this coming, is journalism, is film, is medicine, and other areas using this more for purposes, and seeing more of a use of it, rather than it just being a cool technology with potential. So we see that. In terms of AR, augmented reality, it's still, I don't know that we're 100% ready for it. It's still flip-floppy and back and forth. Everybody thought we were ready for it when Pokemon Go was all the rage in July, and you had 45 million daily users. And then when downloads dropped, and then to 30 million by August, everybody's like, oh, okay. So I don't think that AR is in the place now where it could be. It was still, people are still getting used to 1080p televisions and HD televisions, let alone everything else. So these types of things, again, the community that thinks that all these things are really cool are the techie community, the creator community. But these are not the only people you need to buy into this stuff. You need the average consumers to buy into it, and it's not at that level yet. So those are the other things that I noticed were trends: 360, AR, and VR. Now with Facebook you have the ability to upload 360 video, and you will be able to, or you should be able to do live, or some people I think are able to do live 360 video. So as it becomes more of a thing adopted, a mass adoption, I think we'll see more practical use of it than just cool technology.
Excellent, excellent. What else do you want to share about the media in 2016? Actually, you know what? Actually, one thing we definitely have to get you to talk about is the media coverage of the election.
Well, that was my next thing. So you're right on target, Dr. Vibe. The next thing is it's journalism dropping the ball, and then the election season and journalism's coverage of it. It was, to sound whatever, but it was a media circus. I think that the media did not do, and I hate to say that because I'm a part of the media and so are you, and I don't like when people lump the media into one because there are several media outlets, and that's what, usually that happens when they're blaming the media for bad things. So let me just say that there were several media outlets that did not do their job and due diligence, and really, for all intents and purposes, let one player in the election dominate much of the coverage, and hinted too much, or not hinted, but covered too many things that were insignificant in the scheme of things and in the scope of things. And media outlets do have, or media as a group do have the power to influence, and that's tremendous power. And if it is not handled well and not handled fairly and in a balanced way, you do have, or media outlets do have, the propensity to sway public opinion on things. And it doesn't even have to be true, because the other thing that was a big thing is fake news. So it doesn't even have to be true or even rooted in truth for it to have an effect. And I think that we, or media outlets, have lost sight of that there's tremendous power in the broadcasted word, and the way you craft the broadcasted word has the ability to sway public opinion. And I think that they really did drop the ball. There were some outlets that did a great job, but some that just focused too much on one player or the other player and focused too much on insignificant things in this election. And they're learning their lessons now. And next time around, provided the world has not, or the country has not crashed into an abyss, next time around, I think they'll be a lot more careful and more pointed and more purposeful in coverage.
Well, I think, and it's very true, and the whole area of the media coverage of the election, how many media outlets got it wrong with the prediction of the election. That was a whole other thing there. And also to the president-elect, the way that he's handling the media, he's basically making all his announcements through Twitter. He's not doing press conferences or things like that. He's just using the digital means to get his message out instead of doing a lot of face-to-face things, especially with the media.
Well, because, and again, this is not a judgment of him, but it's very clear that if he does not like what someone has to say, he will either belittle them via his favorite Twitter, or he will, make his own way of getting the information that he wants out there. So he wants to control the narrative at all times. And I think he's going to learn that that's just not possible all the time. It's better for you to do things right than to try and control the narrative after something wrong has gone down.
Well said. Well said. Any other points that you wanted to get out in regards to the media 2016?
So, I kind of grouped everything else together. Well, the last thing I would say then, aside from journalism, the election season, and fake news, is the influence of influencers on all levels. They just became all important. And we see this shift happening from, well, it's a seesaw rather than a shift, because you had the, celebrities being the end all and be all of some people's public opinion and public thought. And they had tremendous influence. But then you have these people that come off of platforms that are doing amazing things, that are getting millions of followers, that are bypassing traditional systems, and everybody is intrigued. And because you have all these people listening to you and following what you say, I want you to jump over this onto this platform and do this. And by the way, bring your followers with you. Okay. And we're going to pay you XYZ. So you have I say it's a seesaw because it starts with celebrities being up here and the end all and be all. And then it switches to these influencers being the end all and be all. But then these influencers become so influential, they become celebrities again. So it's this seesaw effect that continuously happens.
As 2016 comes to the close, what things do you think the media is doing right, and where are there opportunities for the media to do better?
I think that the media is really doing well in terms of, exploring new technology and incorporating that into what they do. Like I mentioned before with live streaming, like I mentioned, journalism has always been all over Twitter. That has been their thing. But I think that a lot of media, for example, going with video because they know that video is a platform that will draw eyes and draw ears, and where they can get their messages out effectively. I think that's a good thing, and that's a step in the right direction in terms of covering and citizen journalism. Facebook Live and Periscope and these live streaming platforms have really increased our interest in what's going on in our world. It's increased our interest in citizen journalism and being the eyes and ears and the police in some cases of the community. So I think that media is doing that well, because all of these things are included in media. They're not separate from media. What could they do better? Number one, they could always do better on diversity. And I'm not just talking about on screen. I'm talking about behind the camera. I'm talking about the people that have the ability to influence. They're not doing well there. They need to do better. I shouldn't have to always go to every time I'm at some kind of conference. Granted, I'm a geek and I love that kind of stuff, but I shouldn't always have to be the only Black woman. I'm a woman. I never, there are far and few between. And when we see each other, we're like this across the room because we see each other, we acknowledge each other. Black woman, Black person. So we need to do better in terms of that. in terms of making opportunities available. And this is why opportunities are often not available, because people work with, in this game, people work with who they know. And if my whole experience is people who look like me, I'm not looking outside at others. So I'm not necessarily blaming you for that, but I am blaming you for being a whole grown adult and not knowing that there are other points of view that make sense. Because every time you bring things up, to a lot of people, the powers that be, oh, well, I never thought about that. Why? Why a whole individual running a network or doing something, why would you not think about that? Was that not something they taught you in school? I don't get it. But yet we're the ones that are always the ones that of us that are quote unquote others are the ones charged with thinking about that. No, you're grown. You need to think about that. And guess what? We're your audience as well. So that's a big thing that that media needs to do better. Diversity, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera, behind the scenes, the tech people. I mean, even if you look at some of these platforms, who are the people that are running these live streaming companies or the live streaming platforms? It's not very diverse. They have to do better. Go to HBCUs, go to Hispanic serving institutions, look in non-traditional places. There are people that are hungry and wanting to participate in this world. They just may not know how. It is imperative that you, as the platform that has the resources, seek these people out. I'm not absolving them of going to seek out these opportunities. After all, I got there, so other people can too. But guess what? There are some people who just don't know how. You got to reach out and do better. It's 2016. No excuses.
Absolutely. No doubts about it. What do you see yourself in 2017? What sort of vision do you have in 2017 when it comes to you personally in media?
Oh gosh. There's so much. I intend to, because I got a good start this year. I see it blowing up even more for next year. I see a lot of travel. When I'm looking at it, I see a lot of travel. I see some more consulting. I see things going to another plateau. So that's what I see for myself. Hopefully it materializes. And
is Toronto is Toronto maybe in that travel plan?
Oh, of course. I mean, I grew up an hour and a half away from Toronto, so that's always a on the radar. So yes.
Okay. Before we let you go, could you share what are messages or some call to actions when it comes to our audience, when it comes to media? What happened in 2016, and what's words of wisdom or call to actions would you have for them in 2017 when it comes to media? Because most of the people that are watching it here are content providers doing it on their own or with a small team. What words or call to actions would you have for them?
Pay attention to your audience, because at the end of the day, you could do it all day, but you're doing it for a purpose, for other people to hear and listen and to maybe take in what you're saying and use it for their own purposes. So pay attention to your audience. Pay attention to what's going on in the media landscape. What's new? What's hot? What can I try to make my product better? In fact, that should be your thing. What can I do to be better? What can I do to be better? And then what can I do to be of service? Because I find that the people who are concerned about not only putting themselves out there, but also reaching back for the next generation of content creators and hopefully being of service in some way are the ones that will do well at the end of the day.
Well spoken. Well, we will leave on that comment. Tachi, as always, thank you for taking time to share with us. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Oh, so I am Tachiada almost on every platform. So at Tachiada on Twitter, Periscope, on Busker, on Snapchat. I use my real name, Chetachi Egwu, on Facebook. So you can check out that on Facebook.
Wednesday nights.
Okay, yes. Okay, so that's right. So Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. on Periscope and Busker, 7:15, 7:30ish on Facebook Live. I do MediaScope, and that's where I talk all about the latest in media, tech, and pop culture. On Fridays at 12 noon Eastern time, I do the social media scene with Alice Fuller, and we talk about the week in social media. Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook Live, and here on Huzzah, I am with Colleen Costello, Matthew Ward, and Joe Wilson, and we do the Classic Movie Salon, which is where we talk about classic films. We watch something on YouTube and then talk about it together. And you can go to tvchanneling.com to listen to our podcast, myself and Kevin Williams out in LA. And we talk all about TV, film, and entertainment, and it's called TV Channeling. If you're watching it, we're talking about it. That's our tagline.
Wonderful. As you can see, everyone, this is BB.
I love media.
Well, absolutely. So definitely, there's many ways you can get in contact with Tachi. We just stuck on the media end tonight because, as you can see, we could talk hours about media. Our goal is to hopefully by next week look at the pop culture world in 2016 if Tachi has time available. So hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yes, let me know.
I will. Okay, well, it's Dr. Vibe here. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. It's the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. If you want to get in touch with me, probably the three best ways: Twitter at DRVIBE, website address www.thedrvibeshow.com, and there's also email dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. I'd like to thank everyone who watches live on the replay. We will be back next week with Tachi to talk about pop culture, because by that time there's enough stories just for that conversation between now and then about pop culture, all the pop icons that we lost this year, and obviously, just shortlist people like Prince. No, I still can't. It just doesn't feel that he passed away. I don't know what other people are feeling, but it happened, and I don't know if it's actually sunk in for a lot of people yet. So we'll cover people like Prince. We're going to get a list of icons, and we're going to chat about it. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. Hey, one other thing, Tachi, promote your T-shirts, please.
Oh, sure. So I am the designer of a T-shirt line called Aku Aqua. Each one is hand painted. And of course, we're going to get some screened designs as well. You can go to aquatees.com. That's AKWATEES.com, and check out what we have available.
Excellent. So we end off on, as always, you're blessed, highly favored, you're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and remember, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Good night, Tachi. Thanks again.
Good night. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Jones. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And the first person I want to see when I got to Toronto was Dr. Vibe. Been on his show before. I will be on his show again if he lets me. He's a great guy. I tell everyone to tune in, to download, to subscribe. You're going to learn some things. It's good for your mind, it's good for your heart, it's good for your body, it's good for your spirit. On and off the mic, he's a great guy. You got to check him out. My name is Chris Jones, all from Chicago. Peace and love.